Peace and love, y'all. What's up? Naeem here. Wanted to talk a little bit about remote viewing, meditation, remote viewing structures, and the aperture, what we call the aperture in remote viewing. Remote viewing structures are designed to bring the viewer from an awake beta state of consciousness. I made a video about brainwave frequencies in relation to remote viewing. I'll put the link in the description if you want to see that. That's a long format video. I'm just going to talk briefly a bit about this here. Remote viewing structures kind of like pull you down a spectrum or bring you into a step-by-step process that allows for like what we call the widening of the aperture. So the aperture, I also made a video about aperture. I'll put that link in the description. The aperture is like, imagine it as like kind of like peeping through a hole, informationally speaking. And as the aperture widens, you're getting more information is coming through, higher level, different types of information come through as you get further along the structure where there's the widening of the aperture, so to speak. So remote viewing structures bring you from, that little tiny hole in the aperture when you just start, and as you move along the process, there's a widening of the aperture, which gives you different kinds of contact with the target. So a lot of people who try remote viewing, maybe for the first time or just do it as kind of like a hobby for fun, they spend a lot of their time in the low openings of the aperture, stage 1, stage 2, maybe stage 3. Like a lot of people who work ARV, which is associative remote viewing, that type of working of remote viewing doesn't really require the viewer to give really detailed descriptions or solve the problem. Really, ARV is just looking for low-level 5-sense data and a sketch usually. So a lot of remote viewing that is at a high level, the viewers get into that deeper state in the further stages, and that's when the brainwave frequency is going to kick into what we call alpha, right? So, and even theta, if you know what you're doing, you can take yourself down into theta, and that's where like ERV and stuff like that usually happens. So when it comes to meditation, people ask, do I meditate, or is meditation useful or helpful in remote viewing? It depends on what you do when you meditate, right? So if you're just gonna sit there and clear your mind, of course that's great. That'll give you a peace of mind and has health benefits and things like that. But when it comes to a meditation or some kind of mental practice that can help you improve your remote viewing, you want to get into the alpha state. And when you're in the alpha state, you want to be doing some kind of activity, because when you're remote viewing, you're in the alpha state, and there's something for you to do. Your conscious mind is going through these probes. It's asking questions. You know what I mean? It's getting visual impressions. It's getting sensory impressions. So, you can think of meditation as like kind of like working out the muscle of your mind. You know what I mean? So, the more easily you can bring yourself into an alpha state, it's kind of like the more easily or quickly you can have a potential for getting higher level data in remote viewing, because the more you can bring, the more easily you can bring yourself into the alpha state, you're opening yourself up to higher level contact. You know what I mean? So um, one of the techniques I used to do all the time in my meditation is to close your eyes, relax, create a visual screen in your mind, a spot in your mind where you're gonna count down from like 50 to 0, but you're gonna count down by twos, like 50, 48, 46, 44, 42. Slowly do that. So this keeps you occupied, your conscious mind active and occupied. You're doing this countdown, and it's not just by ones. You got to count by two, so it requires a little bit of effort and focus. And by the time you get to 0, you're gonna most likely maybe do it from 100 if you're new to meditation. But you'll get when you get to zero, you're gonna be in a focused and relaxed state where it's gonna be like you're not even thinking about opening your eyes, right? Because you're just focused on this internal process for a certain period of time. So that's the kind of mind state that remote viewing brings you into. So there's lots of natural psychics who don't follow a remote viewing structure, or natural intuitives, whatever you want to call it. And the reason maybe is because they can get down to these deeper levels of consciousness without without the training wheels. Remote viewing structure is like training wheels, right? So when it comes to meditation, you want to practice bringing yourself into that alpha state, right? Focused, relaxed state. I mentioned this in a video I made before, but check out the book Silva Mind Control. It's an older book, but there's even some videos on YouTube. You can see the author talking about it. But you should get that book and check out the exercises that it has in there about projecting a mental screen and different little activities you can do in your mind to really stimulate and flex that muscle of your mind. And so when you start doing things like remote viewing, you already have those pathways sparking and shooting all the time, instead of like doing remote viewing once every couple of weeks. Maybe you don't have that much time, so even though you might not be able to remote view as much as you would like to, doing these exercises, putting your mind in these situations is what will help you benefit. It'll benefit your workflow once you start doing your remote viewing again. I like to think of remote viewing as in a more natural sense. So if you look into nature, all living things, they go through a process of development. Plants, for instance, start from a seed, and the seed has to sprout, and it goes through all these little stages. Vegetative stage. If they produce fruits, they'll go into like a flowering stage. The old classic, the caterpillar into the cocoon and then becoming a butterfly. With us as human beings, we're born, we're a little fetus in the womb, and we go through the infant stage and into the prepubescent stage, and then we hit puberty, and then you mature. So things come in stages, right? So I like to think of the remote viewing signal, or the process, whatever you want to call it. This comes in, kind of like develops itself, and that's what the stages is all about, right? I've worked, sessions for an hour and stuff like that, and to see it go from that first bit of information, like the ideogram or whatever, and then developing through all the way to the end to this complete type of polished concept. You see the beauty in it. It's like our artist creating a rough draft and then building and coming out with the final product, or the way an architect has a sketch and comes out with the final when the thing's finally built. So this is the way you gotta this is the way I like to conceptualize the remote viewing process. So yeah, there are people who get amazing hits right off the bat and stuff like that. And that's great, but after the amount of experience that I've had and the people who've taught me, it's like, if you want to be able to do this consistently, and to have trust in it, to have confidence in your work, it's like that's what the structure is about. You know what I mean? When I work on the whiteboard, I'm not really doing the full structure the way I do it on paper, and that's what I mean by the structures are like training wheels. You know what I mean? Learn it with the structure, just like how you probably learned how to ride a bike with training wheels, or your parents helping you or something. You're going to fall down sometimes. You get back up, and you keep going. You learn how, once you program yourself with the structure, then it becomes a second nature, and you get absorbed in the process. Just like when you're riding a bike, you know what I mean? When you're riding a bike or you're driving your car, it's like your body just takes over. You go into a different mind state, and you're able to still operate the vehicle and have a conversation and look around, but you're not going to crash, right? So that's how it is with remote viewing. When you're first learning, You're going to be stumbling on the process and like, oh, what do I do next? Oh, I forgot, how does this stage work? Stuff like that. But once you've done it so many times, it's just like driving the car or riding the bike now. You could do that. It runs itself. The program that you put in yourself runs, and now you open up yourself, your main focus of awareness, to actually retrieve this data, to get these impressions and put them into words and record them. So, you know, keep practicing, keep challenging yourself. You know what I mean? Remote viewing is a testament to the fact that, you know, we have the ability to solve any problem. Honestly, we can solve any problem if we put our minds to it. And usually we like to think that you need to do all this, you need to know everything in order to know anything, to fix anything. But the remote viewing process kind of exposes that, there's more ways to solve a problem than just through a strictly material or intellectual route. And that's probably a hint to how the ancient peoples did a lot of their problem solving and figured out a lot of things that we're still scratching our heads over today. So keep an open mind, keep challenging yourself. Um, and one of the best ways to honestly challenge yourself is, yeah, work a remote viewing target, man. Uh, no clues, no hints, you and yourself, and you might end up proving something to yourself. So peace and love, y'all.